If you want to live like a winner, you've got to start thinking like one every single day. That's the truth. Success doesn't just show up. It's built in the mind long before it shows up in your results. Winners don't wait for motivation. They build habits. They shape their thoughts. They stay focused on what matters, not on what feels easy. While most people waste their mornings, lose control of their time, and listen to distractions, successful people do something different. They take control of their thinking. This video is not about hype. It's about the mindset that actually works in real life. You'll learn how winners think when they're tired, how they deal with pressure, and how they stay focused when opinions and distractions are all around. Every section in this video gives you the mindset successful people practice daily. So the question is, do you want to think like someone who keeps making excuses, or do you want to think like someone who wins? If you're ready to stop drifting and start leading your life with clarity and discipline, then keep watching. This is the mindset that builds winners, and it starts with how you think today. Number 1, talk to yourself with clarity, strength, and direction. You know, one of the biggest differences between someone who wins in life and someone who never breaks through, it starts with how they speak to themselves. Not just once in a while, but daily, hourly, quiet moments, pressure moments, regular mornings, and sleepless nights. A winner doesn't just hope things turn out okay. A winner builds his mind every single day with one clear goal: clarity, strength, and direction. You need to understand that your mind is the loudest voice you'll ever hear. And if you don't take control of it, it will run wild. It'll tell you you're not good enough. It'll remind you of every mistake you've ever made. It'll compare you to people who aren't even on your path. And you know what? If you keep listening to that voice without shaping it, you lose power. Slowly, day by day, you lose your edge, your drive, and eventually, your belief. That's how most people fail. Not on the outside, but inside their thinking. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you gave yourself real direction? When was the last time you told yourself where you're going, what matters, and what you will not tolerate anymore? Winners do that every day, not just once when life falls apart, not just when something big happens, but every day. You've got to talk to yourself the way a leader talks to his team. Direct, clear, firm, encouraging. You've got to say, this is what we're doing today. This is where we're headed. No more confusion. No more excuses. No more halfway effort. Because if you don't say it, the world will say something else. And most of what the world says will weaken you, distract you, or make you doubt everything you already know. Deep down, this is not about being positive for the sake of sounding nice. This is about having a serious conversation with yourself, like a professional, like someone who's building something valuable, like someone who's protecting their future from the traps of laziness, fear, or useless opinions. Most people don't understand how powerful their inner voice is. They think the outside world controls how they feel, but it's the thoughts they repeat to themselves that create their emotions. That inner voice builds your confidence or destroys it. It gives you energy or drains you. It makes you act or keeps you stuck. And if you don't train that voice, you end up controlled by emotion instead of clarity. Winners don't wake up hoping they feel strong. They wake up and speak strength into themselves. They sit down and say, this is what needs to get done today. No matter how I feel, no matter what's going on around me, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I'm after. And then they follow through, and you can do the same. But you've got to stop waiting for permission. You've got to stop waiting to feel motivated. Winners don't wait for motivation. They build it by doing. They say, I know what's required. I know where I'm falling short. I know what's in my control. And that's what I'm fixing today. That's what gives them peace at night. Not perfection, not applause, but knowing they're doing the work they promised themselves they would do. You want clarity? Then stop talking about what you don't want. Stop complaining about what's wrong. Start telling yourself what you do want. Get specific. Say it out loud. Write it down. Repeat it often. I'm building discipline. I'm building control. I'm choosing long-term results over short-term comfort. Those words shape your next action, and your actions shape your identity. You want strength? Then talk like someone who's going to finish what they start. Even when it's hard, even when no one is clapping, even when the work gets boring. Because that's where real strength is built, not in front of others. But when it's just you and the next hard task, and you don't walk away, You want direction? Then stop drifting. Stop letting distractions decide your day. Every time you pick up your phone, every time you scroll without thinking, every time you let someone else's voice get louder than your own, you're giving up direction. And without direction, you get results that don't match your goals. That's the truth. And it's not complicated. You either lead your mind, or it leads you somewhere you don't want to go. And I'll tell you something else. This kind of mental training, it's not exciting. It's not flashy. No one will cheer you on for doing it. But this is what separates those who build real success from those who keep chasing quick fixes. Winners talk to themselves like champions before the results ever show up. That's how they last. That's how they keep showing up. That's how they keep growing when everyone else burns out or gives up. So today you've got to start asking yourself real questions. What kind of thoughts am I feeding my mind every morning? Do I speak like someone building something great? Or do I talk like someone who's given up? Do I lead myself? Or am I following whatever feels easiest? If you don't like your answers, change them. You don't need anyone's permission to do it. You don't need better circumstances to do it. You just need to decide that from now on, you're going to lead your mind like your life depends on it. Because it does. And don't just think these things, say them. Speak them out loud. Feel the shift when you say, I am not going back to who I was. I am not entertaining lazy thoughts. I am not letting fear decide my day. I am doing what must be done, no matter what. That kind of voice changes everything. It builds courage. It cuts through doubt. It gives you a reason to show up strong. And if you stay consistent, something starts to happen. Your mind becomes sharper. Your decisions get better. You stop overthinking every move. You stop chasing comfort. You stop playing small just to feel safe. You start becoming the kind of person who wins. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger, clearer, and more disciplined with how you think. That's the mindset of a winner. And it starts every morning not with motivation, but with a decision to take full control of your thoughts. Speak with clarity. Think with strength. Act with direction. Do it today, then do it again tomorrow. That's how winners live. That's how successful people think daily. And that's how you change everything. Number 2, remind yourself that excuses never create real success. The moment you start to entertain excuses, you've already given away control. People with a winning mindset don't spend time trying to explain why they couldn't follow through. They focus on the truth. The truth is simple. Every excuse is a delay, a lie that slows down growth. The more reasons you collect, the more your standards drop. It may sound harsh, but it's reality. Winners accept responsibility because they know success doesn't care about their reasons. If you want to live at a high level, you must stop trying to justify what didn't happen and focus on what must happen now. Excuses are comfortable. That's why most people use them. They give you a temporary sense of relief. You tell yourself, I was tired, it wasn't the right time, or they didn't support me. And suddenly you feel better for a few minutes. But comfort is not your friend when you're chasing progress. It hides the work you should be doing. It covers up the part of you that needs to grow. Excuses soften your standards until you start accepting a version of yourself that's weaker than what you're capable of being. And that's how people settle without even realizing it. If you want to build a life that means something, you have to stop defending your failures. You have to get honest with yourself. That means asking hard questions and refusing to let yourself off the hook. Why didn't you follow through? Why didn't you stay focused? What did you choose instead? That level of thinking creates awareness, and once you have awareness, you can make better choices. Winners don't pretend things are fine. They face reality. They look at what's not working, and they fix it. Not with words, but with action. A winning mindset knows this. You either get results, or you get regrets. You can't hold both. You can't keep saying, I'll do it when things settle down and expect to grow. Growth doesn't happen in perfect conditions. It happens when you decide that your effort will show up no matter what. The weather, the mood, the schedule, none of that gets to control a person who's committed. That's what separates the serious from the casual. The serious ones stop giving excuses power. They show up, they finish. They do what's required, even when no one's watching. People with strong minds don't entertain weak thoughts. They don't sit around repeating the same story about why they're behind. They don't spend their energy protecting their ego. Instead, they protect their habits. They protect their time. They protect their discipline. Excuses are distractions. Every time you make one, you're stealing from your future. You're saying, I'm okay with staying the same. And if you repeat that long enough, you become someone who believes their own excuses. That's the slow death of personal growth. The only way out is to replace excuses with action. Consistently, not occasionally. There's no power in saying I tried. Trying is safe. It means you never fully committed. It means you had a backup plan, just in case. But winners don't operate like that. They remove the backup. They give their full focus to what they said they'd do. And when things get tough, they don't lower the goal. They raise the standard. They don't look for a way out. They look for a way through. They don't explain why it's hard. They remind themselves why it matters. That mindset keeps them moving forward, while others stay stuck in the same cycle. If you keep justifying poor results, you'll stay surrounded by them. That's the truth. No one likes to hear, but it's also the truth that sets people free. When you finally get tired of not getting anywhere, you stop making excuses. You stop explaining and start executing. You stop waiting and start working. You stop hoping and start holding yourself accountable. That's when real change begins. Not when life gets easier, but when you get stronger. That kind of shift only happens when you're brutally honest about what's getting in the way. And most of the time, it's you. Excuses are often dressed up as logic. You say things like it wasn't the right moment, or I didn't have the energy. It sounds reasonable, but it's still avoidance. It's still fear. The mind will always try to protect you from discomfort, but discomfort is the very thing that builds the new version of you. If you want to grow into the kind of person who wins, you have to fight the urge to stay comfortable. That means showing up tired. That means working while unsure. That means moving forward, even when doubt whispers loud in your head. The people who succeed over time aren't the most talented. They're the ones who keep going when everyone else stops. They didn't get there by being perfect. They got there by removing the option to quit. That begins with zero tolerance for excuses. They don't waste energy making things sound better than they are. They deal with the facts. They tell themselves the truth, even when it hurts. And then they get up and do something about it. Every excuse they reject becomes a step forward. That's how success is built. One strong decision after another. The mindset of a winner is sharp, not soft. It doesn't make room for excuses. It doesn't wait for outside motivation. It doesn't depend on perfect timing. It chooses progress even when progress is hard. It shows up when showing up feels pointless. It works in silence. It improves in private. And over time it creates results that no excuse can ever explain. If you want to win, speak the truth to yourself every day. Remind yourself that excuses have never built anything worth having. And more than anything, refuse to live a life that's powered by reasons instead of results. Number 3, think about what you want, not what you fear. Most people don't realize how much time they spend thinking about what might go wrong. They wake up already worried, already imagining the worst-case scenario, already doubting themselves before the day even begins. That kind of thinking becomes a habit, a mental routine, and over time it shapes the way they approach life. The problem isn't that fear shows up. It always will. The problem is when you let fear take the lead. If you keep feeding fear with your thoughts, you build a mind that expects problems, not progress. And that mindset quietly ruins your chances of moving forward. Winners don't spend their days replaying the things they're afraid of. They don't make decisions based on fear. They don't shrink their plans just to feel safer. They think about what they want clearly, consistently, and with purpose. They use their energy to move towards something, not hide from something. Their focus stays on what they're building, not on what they're avoiding. That's not because they're fearless. It's because they've trained their minds to serve their goals. You can't build anything meaningful while constantly thinking about what might go wrong. You have to focus on what you want to create. Fear lives in the future, in what hasn't happened yet. But what you want, your goals, your growth, your vision, that lives in your choices today. That's the only place you have power. When you keep your mind on what you want, you create momentum. You stop overthinking. You stop hesitating. You stop giving fear your attention. And slowly, your confidence builds. Not because everything feels easy, but because your thoughts are working for you, not against you. You become more focused, more certain. And over time, your mind starts to believe you can actually get where you're trying to go. Your thoughts set your direction. If you constantly think about failing, you act with hesitation. If you keep imagining people rejecting you, you pull back your effort. If you replay your past mistakes all day, you move with guilt instead of strength. That's how fear weakens your behavior. It talks you out of trying. It convinces you that now's not the time. And every time you listen, it gets louder. You have to cut that cycle. You have to flip the switch. Start asking yourself what you want to feel, what you want to experience, what kind of future you want to live. Focus is a tool, and if you aim it at fear, that's all you'll find. You'll notice every obstacle. You'll predict failure before you even try. You'll feel tired before you take your first step. But when you focus on what you want, you begin to move differently. You look for opportunities instead of threats. You seek solutions instead of problems. You talk to yourself with direction instead of doubt. This shift doesn't require perfection. It just requires repetition. Every time you start thinking about what could go wrong, stop yourself and redirect. That's how discipline begins. Mentally, the most successful people still feel fear, but they don't give it control. They stay loyal to their goals, not their worries. They remind themselves daily of what they want and why it matters. That's what gives them the strength to keep going through uncertainty. Fear wants you to freeze. Desire pulls you forward, but you can't follow both. You have to choose. And every day that choice shows up in your thinking. Do you dwell on the fear or move with intention toward what you want? The answer is revealed in your habits, your decisions, and your attitude. You won't always feel brave, but that doesn't mean you stop. What matters is what you think about when things get uncomfortable. Most people shut down. They think about everything that could go wrong, and they call it being realistic. But the reality is, they're training their minds to expect failure. That doesn't serve them. It doesn't help them grow. It doesn't lead to success. Winners choose to keep their focus on what they're chasing, not blindly, not with fantasy, but with grounded, intentional thought. They don't let fear control the tone of their inner dialogue. If you want to think like someone who wins, start by cleaning up your focus. Get honest about where your mind goes during the day. Are you thinking about setbacks more than your next steps? Are you giving more attention to what might hurt you than what might build you? You can't afford to let fear take over your thinking. That's how people drift into mediocrity. Not because they lack talent, but because their mind is always on defense. You have to take that space back. You have to rebuild your mental focus with purpose and honesty. Every day is another chance to think with direction. It's a decision. It's not automatic. The world will give you reasons to worry, to shrink, to settle. But your job is to stay committed to your path. Your thoughts are either adding energy or stealing it. Every time you think about what you want, you feed belief. Every time you give fear your attention, you lose some of your edge. Build the habit of strong thought. Set your mind on what moves you forward. That's how you develop the mindset that gets real results. Not someday, but now. When your thinking shifts, your life follows. You stop acting small. You stop doubting your value. You stop quitting when things don't go your way. That's the power of focus. It starts inside your head, and it reshapes your whole direction. So stop wasting time thinking about fear. Fear has never built anything. It's never finished a goal. It's never made anyone better. But your vision, that's worth thinking about. That's worth fighting for. That's worth waking up early, staying focused, and showing up strong every single day. Think about what you want, and then act like you believe it's possible. Number 4. Cut out useless habits that waste your energy. Most people don't realize how much of their energy is wasted on things that do nothing for their future. They wake up, check their phone, scroll endlessly, talk about problems they never fix, and wonder why they feel tired before the day even starts. These aren't just habits. They're traps. Quiet traps that feel harmless, but cost you progress. A winning mindset doesn't tolerate that. It takes a good look at where time and energy are going and asks one question: does this move me forward or hold me back? If it drains you without building you, it doesn't belong. Winners pay attention to patterns. They don't just look at the big goals, they zoom in on the daily actions that shape who they become. And they know this: what you repeat becomes your identity. You can't build strength with lazy choices. You can't build focus while living distracted. If you spend your time doing things that drain you mentally, emotionally, or physically, don't be surprised when you feel stuck. You're not out of potential. You're just out of focus. And that focus can't grow in a life filled with habits that don't serve a purpose. Habits can either sharpen your mind or dull your edge. You don't need a complicated plan to improve your life. You need a clean one. That means trimming the things that pull your energy in 10 different directions, watching too much news, arguing with people who don't want to change, worrying about things outside your control, waiting for motivation to show up. None of that builds anything. It only leaves you tired and behind. The mindset of a winner isn't built by doing more. It's built by doing what matters and dropping what doesn't. Every minute has weight. You can spend it building your health, strengthening your mind, sharpening your skills, or you can waste it on noise. Noise looks like activity but leads nowhere. Sitting around thinking but not acting. Saying, "I'll start tomorrow" for the 10th time. Checking your phone every 5 minutes. These actions seem small, but they stack up. And over weeks and months, they take more from you than you realize. A winner studies those details. They track where the time goes. And when they find what's stealing from their energy, they cut it out without apology. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming they have unlimited attention. You don't. Every day you wake up with a limited amount of energy, and if you let low-value habits take most of it, you're left with nothing for the things that actually matter. That's why winners protect their mornings, guard their routines, and say no more often than they say yes. They don't waste time explaining their standards. They just live by them. Because they know energy is not something you borrow. It's something you protect. And once it's gone, it's gone. You don't rise by chance. You rise by structure. And structure means creating a life where distractions don't dominate your day. You start by being honest. Which part of your day is just filler? What habits have become automatic, but lead to nothing? The TV that's always on, the social media that eats hours, the gossip that fills conversations. None of it adds strength to your character. None of it moves you closer to your vision. That's why a winner makes changes even when no one else does. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Removing useless habits is not about perfection. It's about priorities. It's not about having more time. It's about having more clarity. When you remove the things that waste your effort, what's left is power. And you need that power to build a future worth living. Every habit you cut creates space for something stronger, something meaningful. But if you don't let go of what's draining you, you'll never have the energy to grow. Winners understand that discipline is not a punishment. It's a strategy, a way of saying my time matters and I won't waste it anymore. There's no need to overthink this. Just look at your life. Are you getting the results you want? Are you growing into the person you respect? If not, start with your habits. What do your mornings look like? How do you spend your evenings? Where is your attention going? If the answers don't align with your goals, then it's time to change the system. Not the dream, not the goal, but the daily system. That's where progress is either made or lost. And most people lose it, one small wasted hour at a time. The most successful people you'll ever meet aren't doing more. They're doing less, but with more purpose. They've stripped away what's useless. They don't spend hours explaining their routine. They let their results do the talking. That's the mindset of someone who wins. Clean, sharp, focused, not because they have superhuman willpower, but because they removed everything that weakens it. And that's a decision anyone can make. You don't need a new year. You don't need approval. You just need a reason. And once you decide your time is valuable, your habits will start to reflect that. A new mindset begins when you stop carrying what's not helping. You don't need more inspiration. You need to remove the weight that's slowing you down. That includes habits, routines, conversations, and even thoughts that do nothing for your growth. The real work is not just adding more into your life. It's subtracting what steals from it. That's how you create space for clarity, strength, and progress. That's how you build a routine that matches your goals. And that's how you shift from being busy to being effective. The difference starts with what you choose to cut. Number 5, act strong even when you feel completely unsure. There are days when nothing feels certain. Your plans feel shaky, your decisions seem risky, and your confidence drops without warning. That's the point where most people step back. They wait for the fear to go away before they take the next step. But the truth is, winners don't wait to feel ready. They move forward anyway. They act strong not because they have every answer, but because they've learned that hesitation costs more than failure. You don't build strength by waiting for perfect conditions. You build it by pushing through the moments when everything inside you wants to freeze. Feeling unsure doesn't mean you're not capable. It means you're human. It means you're stretching beyond what's comfortable. But the mistake most people make is thinking that strength always feels good. It doesn't. Strength is built in discomfort. It's built when you keep your posture up, your effort steady, and your voice clear, especially when your mind is filled with doubt. You don't have to feel certain to act like someone who's committed. In fact, it's the act of standing strong when you're unsure that begins to shift your identity from hesitant to confident. Confidence is not something that lands on your lap. It's something you earn by doing what's hard. When you act strong in the middle of uncertainty, you start proving to yourself that you can handle pressure. That proof is what builds your belief. It's not about faking anything. It's about choosing how you respond when your emotions don't support your goals. You can feel nervous and still take action. You can feel lost and still choose to move forward. That's how people grow, not by avoiding doubt, but by learning how to lead themselves through it. The people who win in life don't always feel like winners. They just refuse to let fear control their behavior. They know they don't have to have everything figured out to take the next step. So they show up, they speak up, they follow through, even when they're uncertain. That daily decision to act strong, even while unsure, is what separates those who keep moving from those who stall. You can't let temporary emotions stop long-term progress. If you do, you'll stay stuck in cycles of overthinking and second-guessing while life keeps moving without you. There's something powerful that happens when you carry yourself with strength. Even when you feel weak inside, your mind begins to catch up to your actions. You stop feeding your fears and start feeding your progress. You remind yourself that feelings are temporary, but actions create outcomes, and outcomes change lives. If you let your emotions decide what happens next, you'll always be behind. But if you lead your emotions instead of following them, you become someone who can be counted on by others and by yourself. That's what separates the committed from the casual. Winners talk to themselves differently when things feel uncertain. They don't entertain panic. They don't say, "I can't handle this." Instead, they say, "one step at a time." They shift their thoughts toward effort, not emotion. That mindset gives them an anchor when everything else feels shaky, and that anchor becomes their strength. You don't need loud motivation, you need quiet control, the ability to hold your ground when your mind is spinning. That control doesn't come from waiting for fear to go away. It comes from showing up and proving that fear doesn't get the final word. Some of the most important moments in life come when you feel unsure. These are the moments where your decisions matter more than your feelings. If you step forward, you grow. If you shrink, you stay the same. And the choice is always yours. Winners know that strength is not about being fearless. It's about staying committed through discomfort. It's about standing tall when your thoughts try to pull you down. It's about making a move when sitting still would feel easier. That kind of strength isn't built in a day, but it starts with one decision. Every strong person you admire has had moments of doubt. The difference is, they didn't let those moments define them. They used those feelings as fuel. Not to quit, but to sharpen their focus. To remind themselves what they're fighting for. To lean into discipline when motivation was gone. That's how you win, by acting strong in the middle of uncertainty. Not by pretending you're fine, but by staying focused on what needs to be done. That mindset keeps your life in motion. It keeps your vision alive. It keeps you in control when everything else feels out of place. If you only act when you feel confident, you won't act often. If you only speak when you feel ready, you'll stay silent. If you only push when the path is clear, you'll never make it through the fog. Success demands movement in the middle of confusion. It demands strength when your doubts get loud. It demands that you show up with clarity, even when clarity hasn't fully arrived. That's not acting. That's leadership. That's what people with a winner's mindset do. They don't wait for peace to start. They build it by moving with purpose through the storm. So when doubt shows up, don't freeze. Don't wait. Don't fall back on old habits. Instead, take one step forward, even if it's small, even if it's shaky. Every strong life is built on steps taken in the middle of fear. That's how discipline grows. That's how courage forms. That's how real results begin. You won't feel strong every day, but you can act like someone who's not going to quit. That single decision made daily is what separates the people who dream from the people who achieve. The winner's mindset is built when you choose strength over hesitation. Every time. Number 6. Keep your focus on effort, not opinions. When your goal is growth, the worst thing you can do is give too much attention to what other people think. Opinions are everywhere, loud, constant, and often unqualified. If you're not careful, they will shape your actions without your permission. A winner doesn't live that way. They don't measure their progress by the praise or criticism they receive. They measure it by their effort. They ask, did I give it everything I had today? That's the real scoreboard. If you let opinions take over your focus, you'll forget why you started. And forgetting why you started is how you fall behind. You can't win long-term if your energy goes to managing other people's thoughts. You'll lose focus. You'll become reactive. You'll start adjusting your pace, your style, even your goals just to avoid criticism. That mindset never leads to mastery. It leads to frustration. Because no matter what you do, someone will always have something to say. If you're trying, you'll be judged. If you're growing, you'll be misunderstood. And if you're doing anything different, you'll be questioned. Winners don't run from that. They accept it as part of the process and keep their attention on what they control. Effort is the one thing that can't be taken from you. It's honest, it's direct. It doesn't rely on outside approval. You either put it in or you don't. And at the end of the day, you know the truth. Did you show up fully? Did you push when you felt like slowing down? Did you stay committed even when you were tired? That's the kind of thinking that builds momentum, because it forces you to hold yourself to a standard that doesn't change based on who's watching or what people are saying. The noise will always be there. People will talk, they'll assume, they'll criticize from the sidelines. But their opinions don't carry the weight of your discipline. Their voices don't reflect your reality. They weren't there when you stayed up late, finishing the work. They didn't feel the fear you had to push through just to take a single step forward. That's why you can't afford to give them control. Focus is a limited resource. If you give too much of it to outside opinions, you leave very little for your actual progress. That's not strength. That's distraction. The strongest people don't look strong because of compliments. They look strong because of how consistent their effort is. It's not about perfection. It's about showing up again and again. That consistency builds confidence. Not the fake kind that depends on applause, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you've done the work. You can't fake that, and you don't need anyone's opinion to confirm it. That's what makes it real. When your mind is set on effort, your identity shifts. You become someone who's not moved by approval. You're moved by purpose. The more you grow, the more opinions you'll attract. That's part of progress. You'll be questioned by those who don't understand your drive. You'll be criticized by those who gave up on their own. But winners don't shrink in the face of opinions. They just stop caring about the ones that don't help them grow. Not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. You can't live your life trying to keep everyone comfortable. You'll water yourself down. You'll delay your goals. You'll become someone you don't even recognize. That's a cost you can't afford to pay. Winners know they're not in competition with other people. They're in competition with their last effort. That's what keeps them moving. They don't need to explain themselves. They don't need constant validation. Their focus is internal. They track their growth. They improve their habits. They stay loyal to their goals. And when setbacks come, as they always do, they don't look around for someone to blame. They look in the mirror. They adjust. And then they get back to work. Because in the end, the only thing that matters is whether they stayed committed to the work or not. The freedom to grow comes when you stop asking for permission. Too many people stay stuck because they're waiting for approval. They want to be told it's okay to go all in. But a winner gives themselves that permission. They trust their process. They trust their effort. And even when things don't work out perfectly, they're proud of the fact that they tried with everything they had. That's what gives life meaning. Not the praise, not the likes, not the comments. The quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you didn't hold back. There's nothing more exhausting than living for other people's approval. It's unstable. It changes every day. You're up when they're happy with you, and down when they're not. That emotional roller coaster will destroy your focus. You can't lead a powerful life while constantly looking over your shoulder. You need space to think clearly. You need permission to fail forward. You need the discipline to stay on your path, even when others don't understand it. That discipline only grows when you stop giving opinions weight and start giving your effort meaning. The winner's mindset is built on effort, not applause, not permission, not noise, just effort. Real work, quiet hours, unseen progress. That's where confidence lives. That's where growth comes from. And that's what separates people who build something great from those who get stuck chasing approval. You want a strong life? Then stop listening to opinions and start measuring your discipline. Start focusing on your actions. That's what you own. That's what you control. That's what will build the future you want. Keep your focus locked on effort and watch your results speak louder than any opinion ever could. Number 7. Use your mornings to build personal momentum. How you start your morning sets the tone for everything else. It doesn't matter how big your goals are if you wake up without purpose. A winning mindset doesn't wait for the day to decide how it will go. It creates momentum early. It uses the quiet hours to get ahead, not to relax, but to get clear, get focused, and move forward before the world makes demands. Those first few hours can be the most powerful. If you treat them right, they're not just about routine, they're about ownership. Every strong day begins with intention, and intention begins with how you start. Mornings are your mental reset. They're your chance to leave behind what didn't work yesterday and make better decisions today. You don't need anyone's permission to start strong. You just need a standard. The people who win don't wake up to noise and confusion. They wake up with structure. They do the things that strengthen their mindset before the distractions begin. That could be writing their thoughts, reviewing their priorities, doing physical training, or simply sitting in silence to clear their head. The point is, they start early with focus, not late with regret. When you build personal momentum in the morning, you carry confidence into everything else. You don't get pulled around by problems. You face them with a stronger mind. That strength doesn't come from talent. It comes from repetition. Doing the same right things over and over, even when you don't feel like it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. People who start the day rushed, distracted, and unprepared spend the rest of the day recovering. But those who take control early keep their energy focused on progress, not repair. You don't need a long routine. You need a meaningful one. A few focused habits done early are more valuable than a packed schedule with no purpose. Take time to write what matters. Remind yourself why you're working. Set one clear priority and commit to it. That clarity builds momentum, and momentum gives you speed. Most people don't struggle because they lack goals. They struggle because they start slow. They let mornings drift. They let their mind wander. Winners don't allow that. They build direction into their first hour. That hour shapes their attitude, and their attitude shapes their results. The morning is your advantage, but only if you take it seriously. It's the one part of the day you still control before everything else shows up. That's why it's worth protecting. If you waste it on noise, you waste your best opportunity to lead your day. If you use it to build, your mind stays clear, your body feels ready, your decisions get easier. Winners don't treat the morning like an accident. They treat it like a launch pad, not just to check a box, but to remind themselves who they are and where they're going. If you wake up without a plan, you start behind. And once you're behind, it's hard to catch up. Your mornings don't need to be loud. They need to be disciplined. The goal isn't to look busy. It's to build inner strength. Some days that means pushing hard. Other days it means preparing in silence. But every day it means choosing progress over comfort. A winning mindset doesn't hit snooze on discipline. It uses the quiet to sharpen focus. That mental edge doesn't show up later. It gets built in the moments no one sees, before the world wakes up. You don't need more time. You need better use of time. Most people lose hours before noon to indecision, distraction, or bad habits. Then they wonder why they feel behind. The morning isn't a time to catch up. It's a time to get ahead. You don't need to be motivated. You need to be consistent. Every time you start strong, you create a pattern, and that pattern becomes your identity. Over time, those early actions build personal pride. You know you're not guessing your way through the day, you're leading it. That mindset gives you quiet control over what happens next. If your mornings are full of clutter, your life will feel the same. The first part of your day speaks loud to your subconscious. It teaches your mind what matters. That's why scrolling your phone or hitting snooze damages more than time. It damages trust in yourself. The winner's mindset is built on the belief that you are in charge. Not your mood, not your schedule, not your distractions. That belief must be reinforced daily. And there's no better place to do that than in the first hour of your day. That hour is not small, it's everything. Success isn't a sudden moment. It's built quietly in patterns. Your patterns begin in the morning. How you sit, how you think, how you breathe, what you choose to do first. These are not small things. They are signals. They send a message to your mind about who you are becoming. Winners use their mornings to train their focus. They don't chase motivation. They create it. Not through hype, but through discipline. Not through luck, but through repetition. And that effort doesn't just improve the morning. It improves the whole day. That's how personal momentum is built. Not in one act, but in one decision, followed by another. You don't have to overhaul your life to build momentum. Just start early. Start with one solid decision. Start with one focused hour. That's how strength begins. Not in talking about goals, but in preparing for them before distractions take over. Winners aren't born with discipline. They build it when the rest of the world is still asleep. And that discipline pays off when pressure shows up. It's not about doing what's easy. It's about doing what works. Use your mornings to build clarity, energy, and direction. Because the person who wins the morning doesn't chase the day, they lead it. Number 8. Act like time is running out every day. Most people live like they have forever. They waste days thinking they'll always have more time, more chances, more energy. But the truth is, you don't. Time isn't on pause. It doesn't care if you're tired or distracted or waiting for things to feel right. Every hour that passes is one you'll never get back. That's why a winner doesn't treat time casually. They treat it like a resource with a limit. They act like the clock is ticking, because it is. They don't rush. But they don't stall either. They move with urgency, not because of panic, but because of purpose. There's no stronger fuel than the awareness that time is running out. Not in a negative way, but in a way that wakes you up. It forces you to stop playing small. It forces you to act, to prioritize, to speak up, to move. Most people put off what matters, waiting for the right moment. But winners don't look for the perfect time. They look at the time they have and ask, what can I do with this? They know that thinking too long can cost them the very thing they're trying to build. So they start, even if it's messy, even if it's hard. You don't know how many mornings you'll get. You don't know how many more chances you'll have to build the life you keep imagining. So wasting time on distractions, waiting on motivation, or letting fear control your pace, it's not just inefficient, it's dangerous. Because one day, there will be no more time to do the thing you said you'd do. The idea will be gone. The opportunity will have passed. The regret will stay. Acting like time is running out doesn't mean you live in fear. It means you live like it matters, because it does. Winners understand that pressure is not always a problem. Sometimes it's a reminder that comfort is a thief. It steals urgency. It keeps you thinking there's no need to push today, because tomorrow is available, but tomorrow is not guaranteed. And the more you believe it is, the slower you move. A strong mindset doesn't need threats to work hard. It just needs perspective. The kind of perspective that says, if I don't do it now, when? That question changes everything. It pulls you back to the present and reminds you that real progress lives in action. When you act like time is running out, your priorities become clearer. You stop saying yes to things that don't matter. You stop wasting energy proving yourself to people who don't care. You stop giving your attention to things that leave you empty. That urgency isn't stress, it's strategy. It sharpens your focus. It builds your discipline. It forces you to choose effort over excuses. Most people wait until they've lost something to realize its value. Winners don't wait for loss to wake up. They value time now. They live today like it actually means something. You'll never meet someone who reached their potential by moving slowly, by hesitating, by waiting for signs. The people who grow, who lead, who create impact, they all have one thing in common. They don't waste time. They treat each day like it matters, because it does. And they don't live like it'll be here forever. That belief alone sets them apart. Not because they panic, but because they act with intention. That's the difference between someone who dreams and someone who builds. It's not about speed. It's about direction backed by urgency. You don't build a strong life with leftover time. You build it by putting your best effort into today. Not hoping you'll have more energy tomorrow. Not pushing your goals down the road because you're unsure, but showing up and using what you have now. The people who win don't look back wishing they'd started earlier. They live in a way where they can say, I gave it everything while I had it. That kind of life doesn't come by accident. It's built on choices made with the understanding that time isn't something to be wasted. The clock is always moving, and every minute you hesitate, someone else is taking action. Someone else is learning, growing, building, while you're thinking. Thinking is important, but thinking without action becomes a trap. It keeps you in your head while life passes by. Winners don't just think, they move. They act. They build while they learn. They improve while they execute. They don't wait to feel certain. They move with the awareness that every minute matters. That mindset makes them different, not better, just more committed to using the time they've been given. Urgency doesn't mean you rush through life. It means you stop wasting parts of it, pretending it's unlimited. You live with more intention. You speak more truth. You work with more focus. You rest with more awareness. You stop thinking you're too young or too behind. You stop comparing your path to someone else's. Because when you truly understand that time is limited, you stop trying to impress people and start trying to fulfill your own standards. You realize that your effort, not your comfort, is what shapes your future. That's what urgency gives you. Clarity. Time is running out. That's not something to fear. It's something to respect. Because when you respect time, you make better decisions. You don't put off the hard things. You stop giving energy to what drains you. You start building a life that matches your values, not your distractions. Winners live with that understanding. It's what pushes them to move when others wait, to commit when others doubt, to finish when others quit. They don't live scared. They live focused, and that focus turns into results. Because every day matters when you act like the clock is ticking. Number 9. Remind yourself that comfort steals your future. Comfort is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a person with ambition. It feels good in the moment, but it slowly pulls you away from growth. It lowers your urgency. It numbs your drive. It tells you that you don't need to try harder today because tomorrow is another chance. But that's how progress dies, one comfortable day at a time. A winning mindset never confuses comfort with peace. Peace is earned through effort. Comfort is often the reward people take before they finish the work. And over time, that choice rewrites your entire future without warning. You cannot grow and stay comfortable at the same time. Growth demands tension. It pushes you into new situations, new standards, and new routines. Comfort whispers that you've done enough. It says rest a little longer. Avoid the hard conversation. Skip the challenge. And at first it sounds harmless, but every time you choose comfort over challenge, you send a message to your mind that struggle is something to avoid. That message becomes your mindset, and that mindset starts to shape your actions. And if your actions are built around ease, your results will reflect that weakness. The most dangerous part about comfort is that it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like relief. And that's why most people don't notice when it starts to take over. They slow down, telling themselves they're just taking a break. But breaks become habits. Habits become personality. And eventually, the fire they once had is gone. Not because they lacked talent, but because they accepted average in exchange for ease. Winners are different. They don't run from discomfort. They step into it because they know that the future they want won't come from doing what feels good. The more you chase comfort, the further you drift from discipline. And without discipline, nothing important gets built. Your health suffers. Your finances slip. Your relationships become lazy. And your goals become optional. That's the cost of living to feel good instead of living to grow. A winner builds their life around what's necessary, not just what's pleasant. They don't make decisions based on temporary relief. They make them based on long-term strength. That's how they protect their future. They see comfort as a signal not to rest, but to push harder, because they know what's at stake if they don't. Comfort isn't something you earn once and keep forever. It's something that has to be managed every day. You can be disciplined one week and drift the next if you stop paying attention. That's why winners remind themselves daily, comfort is a trap. It feels safe, but it steals opportunity. It convinces you that you're doing fine, even when you're falling behind. That's why awareness is so important. You need to look at your patterns. Ask yourself, am I growing or just coasting? Because if you're coasting, you're not standing still. You're sliding backwards without realizing it. There is nothing wrong with rest, but there is a problem when rest becomes your goal instead of your strategy. Rest is meant to help you recover, not help you avoid responsibility. When people start building their routines around what feels easy, they lose their edge. They avoid the early mornings. They skip the tough tasks. They delay the important conversations. And then they wonder why their results don't change. Winners don't avoid effort. They look for it. Not because they enjoy pain, but because they respect the process. They know that real progress is always paid for in discomfort. When you stop growing, life doesn't stay the same. It gets smaller. Your options shrink. Your confidence fades. Your vision weakens. All because you got too comfortable. That's why successful people put pressure on themselves, even when no one else does. They keep their standards high. They push their limits. They hold themselves accountable. They don't wait for a crisis to wake up. They stay awake. And that awareness keeps them moving. It keeps them sharp. It reminds them that comfort will cost them more than effort ever will. It's not just about how you feel today. It's about who you're becoming. Most people look for ease and call it happiness. But ease without purpose is just distraction. It might feel good temporarily, but it leaves you empty. That's why a strong mindset doesn't chase what's comfortable. It chases what's meaningful, and meaning always requires effort. If you avoid everything that feels difficult, you avoid the very things that will make you stronger. You avoid the pain that builds character. You avoid the tension that reveals clarity. And you avoid the work that leads to freedom. Comfort promises you peace, but it only delivers regret when your potential is left unused. You have to get honest with yourself. Are your daily choices protecting your future or protecting your comfort? Because you can't have both. Every time you choose to avoid a challenge, you're choosing to accept the life you have right now. And if that life doesn't reflect your goals, then comfort is your enemy. A winner's mindset isn't about being reckless. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that every easy decision comes with a price. And the price is always paid later in frustration, limitation, and disappointment. The only way to avoid that is to stop negotiating with ease. If you want a better future, you have to stop serving your comfort. You have to do the things that make you sharper, even when you're tired. You have to lean into discipline, even when no one's watching. You have to stretch yourself when it would be easier to stay the same. That's how strength is built. Not in one big moment, but in daily decisions to choose discomfort over convenience. Winners don't talk about doing hard things. They just do them, because they know comfort is not a reward. It's a test. And only those who resist it rise. Number 10. Write down your goals and read them daily. Most people carry their goals in their head, not on paper. They say they want to change, to improve, to achieve something big, but they don't take the time to write it down. And that's why their vision fades. Without a clear written goal, the mind drifts. It gets pulled by distractions, influenced by pressure, and confused by doubt. A person with a winner's mindset doesn't let their goals live in memory. They give them structure. Writing down your goals makes them real. It forces you to commit. It turns ideas into direction. And direction is what separates progress from wasted motion. The act of writing your goals brings clarity. You start seeing exactly what matters. No more vague intentions. No more guessing. Just specifics. And that clarity gives you power. You know what to aim for. You know what to say no to. You know what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Reading those goals daily keeps you locked in. It reminds you what you're building. It reminds you what's at stake. Without that reminder, it's easy to forget. It's easy to coast. It's easy to make small decisions that lead you away from your future without even noticing. Every goal you write down becomes a filter for your actions. You start catching the habits that don't match what you say you want. You start questioning the excuses that used to feel valid. You start building a different level of self-respect. When you read your goals every day, you start becoming someone who lives with purpose, not just talk. That's a shift most people never make. They think goals are for someday. Winners know they're for today, right now. They're not something you review at the end of the year. They're something you use to drive your day. Writing down your goals is not about motivation. It's about alignment. When your thoughts, actions, and intentions match your written goals, your confidence grows. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop chasing things that don't serve you. You don't need approval. You don't need applause. You need direction. Goals give you that, but only if you keep them in front of you. Life is loud. People have opinions. Days get stressful. If you don't remind yourself what you're working for, the world will fill your head with things that don't matter, and your energy will be spent without return. The mind needs direction every single day. Without it, you drift. You fill your hours with busyness instead of results. You respond to urgency instead of planning for importance. A written goal cuts through all of that. It's a line in the sand that says, "This is where I'm headed." It doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees clarity, and clarity creates momentum. The more you review your goals, the deeper they sink into your identity. They're no longer something you hope to reach. They become part of who you are, and that shift is what drives consistent action. You don't need to write down 50 things. You need a few clear goals that truly matter. Goals that scare you a little and stretch you a lot. Goals that challenge your comfort. Write them down in your own words. No fluff, no fancy language. Just honest targets that reflect the life you want to create. Read them when you wake up. Read them when you lose focus. Read them when you feel discouraged. Because those are the moments where most people quit. But when your goals are written and reviewed, they pull you back. They remind you what's worth fighting for. You can't build something great with scattered thinking. And your mind will stay scattered if you don't give it structure. That's what writing does. It organizes your thinking. It shows you where you're inconsistent. It calls out your laziness. It gives you something solid to hold on to. Most people never take that step. They carry wishful thinking around and call it vision. But vision without commitment is just noise. The page doesn't lie. If you don't write it, you don't own it. And if you don't read it daily, you won't act on it with the urgency it deserves. Reading your goals daily isn't about staying motivated. It's about staying honest. It's about asking yourself, am I moving toward this or not? It doesn't allow room for excuses. It brings attention to the gap between what you want and what you're doing. That gap is where most people stay stuck. They hope things change without facing that truth. But winners face it daily. They don't look away. They don't sugarcoat it. They read the goal and then take action. Even when it's hard, even when progress is slow. That's how belief is built, through daily reminders followed by real action. You'll never regret writing your goals. You'll regret drifting without direction. You'll regret waking up years later, wondering what happened to your ambition. The act of writing forces you to think deeper. It shows you if you're serious or just interested. And if you are serious, it gives you a roadmap. Not a perfect one, but a real one. One you can touch, read, and follow. You don't need more ideas. You need more reminders. You don't need more dreams. You need more discipline. Write it down, read it again, and live like it matters. Because it does. A person with a winner's mindset treats their goals like instructions, not suggestions. They don't rely on memory. They don't hope they'll remember what matters most. They put it on paper and revisit it with focus. They know the future isn't created by intention alone. It's shaped by what you keep in front of you. And when your goals stay visible, your actions start to align. You stop wasting time. You stop drifting. You start choosing what builds you. Writing down your goals and reading them daily doesn't just change your focus. It changes your identity. That's how winners think every day. If you want to change your life, start by changing how you think every single day. Winners don't rely on luck or wait for perfect moments. They build habits, protect their focus, and take responsibility for how they show up. The difference between staying average and becoming successful is found in your daily mindset. So write your goals, stay consistent, push past comfort, and remind yourself what matters. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be clear, committed, and consistent. Start now, stay focused, and think like a winner, because that's how real success is built, one day at a time.